How often is it that the last entry in a series is the best one? That is normally not the case when it comes to video games, TV shows, movies. By the end, they're often scraping the bottom of the barrel. Quality is dwindling. That wasn't the case though with CD Projekt Red and The Witcher 3. The game was incredibly successful, despite the fact it was meant to be the last one, and the quality was still very high. Despite all of that, we are getting The Witcher 4, and today we have finally gotten some genuine news. CD Projekt Red are very, very lucky. The Cyberpunk fiasco, that could have absolutely ended any hype for the studio, and yet 3 years after launch, most of the talk around them is positive again. Fixing up the game like they did, that really should have been seen as the bare minimum, but I mean, these days developers releasing broken games and actually fixing them, that is really a roll of the dice. Fortunately with Cyberpunk, we did roll a 6. They did genuinely fix it, and because of that, I think it's okay to be excited about The Witcher 4. This isn't like Bethesda with Starfield, where they've released an absolute dud, they've drastically doubled down on it, and have even tried to convince fans that they're wrong if they criticize it. At least with CD Projekt Red, they admitted that they cocked it up, and they at least seem to care about their reputation, and that is only going to truly be fixed if Witcher 4 is fantastic. That brings us to some news that has just come out. An Italian website, they recently published an interview with the Witcher 4 game director, where we got our first real glimpse into what we can expect from the game. What we know is that over 330 devs are now working on The Witcher 4, and that number is expected to grow going into 2024, possibly to 400 plus over the next 6 months. They're also trying to plan, manage better, rather than overworking staff at the last minute and rush a game out that isn't ready, aka Cyberpunk. They seem to be trying to get organised in advance so that they can properly reveal the game and give an accurate release date that isn't 2 years too early. The interview with the game director himself, it did reveal much more. For instance, he mentions that they aren't looking to simply make a Witcher 3 reskin, make the same game again. They do want to expand and innovate. They do appreciate that there are lore elements, a grounded universe that does need to be respected, but they are still looking to be very ambitious. The next bit in the interview, it could be seen as a bit of a mixed bag, because he mentions that for The Witcher 4, they need to be appeasing a new public, a new audience. Now, this interview, it was on an Italian website, so there may be some translation issues, but attracting a modern audience is rarely seen as a big positive to gamers, as it can often mean dumbing things down or inserting questionable messaging into the game. That being said, I don't think that CD Projekt Red have really been guilty of that sort of thing over the years. I would even argue that Cyberpunk is less dumbed down than The Witcher 3 in some ways. It has a character builder, it's got stats, there was plenty of genuine decision-making throughout the quests and the gameplay itself as well, and plenty of that was more varied than The Witcher 3. The director does go on to clarify that they aren't just going to target people already fond of the saga. He does say they need to build a new audience. And that sounds a little bit odd to me, because Witcher 3, it sold ridiculously well. We're talking 50 million plus copies. That beats out some of the Mario Kart entries. That is insane. And it puts it up there with the best-selling games of all time. So my question would be, why exactly do they need to find a new audience? If everyone who bought 3 bought it again, they bought The Witcher 4, would that not be a huge success? Even if Witcher 4 is great, I'd be shocked if it sold as well as its predecessor, simply because Geralt is unlikely to be in there, and that's okay. He should not be the main character again. That would be a bad decision. They do need to rebuild, and look, if I give this game director the benefit of the doubt, maybe that is what he's really referring to. They can't just ride off the coattails of 3, they need to earn fans' trust again after Cyberpunk. That may be what he means. And to do that, they will need to rebuild the Witcher franchise all over again, with a new player character potentially, and if that's the case, that is fine. I just hope they don't stray too far from the excellent quest and narrative design of The Witcher 3 to achieve that. I think it's what made it special. It's not the open world, it's not the combat, it's not really the gameplay systems, it's very much the story, the quests that are memorable and made it this massive success. And the director, he actually signs off on this point by saying that the new entry will be an excellent entry point for many players without forgetting the long-time fans who still wish to follow Geralt's adventures. That last bit to me is interesting. Does it confirm that Geralt will be in the game even if you don't play as him? Could it be the case that there's more than one playable character? For instance, you might play a new Witcher in the current day, but what if there's flashbacks? Something in the story sees you needing to play as Geralt in the past, and we get to revisit, explore a new story starring him in some way. I mean, that's purely a theory, but it sounds like they're looking to keep Geralt involved in some way. I'm sure they want to get him in the marketing. They want to really push this. And they continue to talk about innovation, how they're going to approach making an RPG going into 2024 and beyond. And they specifically mention wanting to break boundaries and make something new compared to current role-playing games. Now, that by itself doesn't really mean anything, kind of buzzwords, but you would think in a post-Baldur's Gate 3 world, that pressure is on to release a game that genuinely feels like it's pushing the medium forward and isn't just a regression. I mean, Starfield, that is a perfect example of regression. Its negative reception was absolutely influenced by us getting an absolute banger in Baldur's Gate 3 only a couple of months before. Baldur's Gate proved what modern gaming is capable of when studios are competent. Will Witcher 4 try and do the same? To be that RPG that stands out and has RPG players pointing towards it as the game that sets the standard. If it is going to remain a juggernaut franchise, it needs to be that. CD Projekt Red, they even experienced it themselves in 2015. Everyone was excited for Fallout 4, here's Bethesda again, and yet it was Witcher 3 that stood out over the fourth Fallout game. It was Witcher that won Game of the Year, picked up the accolades, exactly like Baldur's Gate 3 did in 2023 when it beat out Starfield. I will say that it is very nice to hear him talk about actually targeting RPG fans, which he does bring up later in this interview. Because late in Cyberpunk's marketing cycle, they actually started to remove the term RPG from various descriptions of the game, and it worried me that CD Projekt Red were just purely trying to target that mainstream crowd, maybe more of a Grand Theft Auto crowd, given there were a lot of comparisons back in sort of early, mid-2020, suggesting that Cyberpunk, it was going to be the next GTA, you were going to be able to live in this city, immerse yourself, do all those cool things you do in a Grand Theft Auto, and it just seemed like they were steering away from the RPG audience. Now, I wouldn't call either of Witcher 3 or Cyberpunk a massively hardcore RPG, either of them, but they absolutely respect the genre. They are RPGs in their own way, and Witcher 3 especially, it nails that narrative side of things when it comes to a role-playing game. Adding to all of that, the director did actually talk about giving players a lot of freedom, not just in exploration, but also your character's build. This was intriguing because there's a lot he could be referring to. It could be simply choosing your weapons and armor, but it could also be skills, a perk tree like in Cyberpunk. Witcher 3, of course, was a bit different because you were playing as a set character, but that is no guarantee in Witcher 4. And perhaps without a main character who is as notable as Geralt, they may see it as a better option to let you create your own character rather than actually try and replace Geralt with someone new who needs to stand on their own 2 feet. Perhaps that time being put into creating a special main character, that could instead be put into creating more quality side characters, NPCs that you meet along your journey. With Witcher 4 moving from CD Projekt's own Red engine over to Unreal 5, it will be interesting to see if it hastens or slows down development as the devs get used to the new tools. There was plenty of hype for the Unreal 5 engine, but the truth is, a lot of games that have come out that have used that engine, they have had their problems, especially when it comes to performance. So hopefully by the time Witcher 4 comes out, those sorts of issues are resolved. I really cannot be fucked with another Jedi Survivor on PC. Even Starfield, where Mr. Howard, he told us to buy a new $3,000 computer if we wanted to enjoy the game. Please, none of that patronizing stuff. Now, CD Projekt Red, they've been working on Witcher 4 for quite a while now, and Witcher 3 itself, it took around 4 years to make. If this all lines up, we could actually be looking at a 2026 release date. That seems super far away, but hey, that gap between Witcher 3 and 4, that is still likely going to be much shorter than the gap between Skyrim and Elder Scrolls 6. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.